Right, that's us ready to go. So, welcome everybody to this evening's webinar on the African expeditions that Essex Scouts will be launching. My name's Chris. I am one of the international team leads for Essex Scouts, and we're really excited to present kind of one of the first projects that we're launching to Essex Scouts to be aware of what we're up to, and sort of let you know about this amazing opportunity that we've been making available to everybody in the county that are kind of within the age range from when the event starts. The webinar today will be focusing on Ghana and Zanzibar. It's got Ghana 2025 and Zanzibar 2026. The event is open to young people that are 14 plus as of the date in which of departure, which will be in our timelines of things in this presentation very shortly. And any 18 plus adults. So you've got the option, because it's 14 to 25, to either be a participant or to be a leader. You know, if you're 18 plus, you could get an option of both sides. But network is a youth section, and it's an opportunity for you to do something as a networker, but also for those that are explorer age, to explore something. So we'll go right into the webinar and what we're covering off today. So the areas that we're going to be covering off is a little bit about the international team's African expeditions plan, a little bit about African Adventures, who will be our partner that we'll be working with, why you might want to join, things to consider about when applying. My personal experience with working with African Adventures, I've been on an African Adventures expedition before, so a lot of particularly the Ghana slides, they're all photos that I've taken, been in as part of that expedition, but that I went to in 2022. And why we're launching it, and then a little bit about the program for Ghana in 2025, the program for Zanzibar in 2026, then information about fundraising, the fees, and the payment plan that will be in place for those that will be. Oh, that's my just letting people in. That for those of us that have that will be going, and then the process for the leader selection and the sign-up process for both participants and leaders, along with an event timeline, how to join in the next steps, and where we're looking to go from there. So as an initial launch, our goal is to have an impact and a continued impact on communities in Africa. So Essex Scouts having a regular presence in Africa to improve the communities, but also develop the young people that join that expedition. In order to deliver that, we've partnered with a charity called African Adventures to deliver continued benefit to and benefit from their intimate knowledge of the region. I will cover a little bit more about African Adventures and why they're the right partner for us to deliver these expeditions. The projects that we're launching today are Ghana and Zanzibar, and the plan is, providing there's good uptake and enough interest, that we'll do visits every 4 years. So depending on the success of these expeditions, it may be something we look to do on a rolling basis every 4 years. So Ghana potentially could be in 29, and Zanzibar could potentially be in 2030, if anyone wants to think that far ahead. No, I certainly don't at the moment. Now, should the Ghana and Zanzibar expeditions be a success, and there's a strong appetite for young people visiting and making an impact on communities in Africa, we're looking at a potentially larger project for a larger group of young people to go in for the 14 to 18 range in 2027, following the success of the Essex 23 expeditions that went on. Perhaps that could be another part of that program, but that's a pipe dream at the moment, and something all dependent on the potential interest of these Ghana and Zanzibar expeditions. Now, within those areas or within the countries, there's some additional projects that we might want to do while there, and that can be led by the leadership team to decide what kind of causes they might want to support within in country, along with the young people, making sure that the event is as shaped by young people as possible, in partnership with the adults that are attending. Now, the Ghana and Zanzibar expeditions will be open to 14 to 25 age range, and initially we pitched it as around 25 people per trip with 4 leaders, so 21 young people places and 4 leader places. However, within the first day, both trips that or both events in terms of interest has well exceeded that. So we've looked to increase that potentially slightly, all depending on the final numbers that sign up as an event. But we are looking at potentially expanding that further. So there could be some more leader places and some more young people places. We're keen not to turn young people away, but worth also thinking about the impact of the event and what there may be to think about. So why African Adventures? Well, they've been working with countries in Africa for the past since 2009, so a significant amount of time. They operate adventures in Ghana, Kenya and Zanzibar, and are partnered within those countries with over 20 schools. And they've organised trips for over 6,000 volunteers in their operational time. And they also, through the African Adventures Foundation, support over 20,000 young people in Africa through the construction and development of local schools that they partner with, the meal processes and the meal programs that they have in place. And the idea of partnering with African Adventures is you can't build a whole school in 2 weeks. You can't build it in a week. So when you're volunteering as a leader or as a young person at one of these events, there's a lot of schools that they partner with a particular school. They go and build something. It's half finished. There's not a long-term plan. So the benefit of working with African expeditions is it's a continued development process with African Adventures. It's a continued work with a individual school and different schools in the area with program plans, so that each phase of a building project is delivered by volunteers in a phased approach. So there's not multiple half-built schools across Africa that haven't had continued focus and investment. So it's providing a continued development, a continued benefit from being in those countries. And they're an expert. They've got a significant number of ground agents that will be with our leaders and young people throughout the project. So they'll be in country to support, and they've got extensive experience and contact networks within those countries. So they're a fantastic partner to work with, along with having all the accreditation in terms of ABTA bonding and tourism and learning outside the classroom accreditation. So they're very focused. Now, why would you want, as well as being an incredible experience visiting another country that is very dissimilar to our own, there are a lot of positives to you as a young person getting involved, or as a leader getting involved as in this event, be it to achieve your top awards, so platinum, silver, and King Scout awards that are available to young people from the residential section of those, or the international element of those, depending on what projects and things do it. You could potentially form part of your Scouts of the World award if you're thinking about completing that for those networkers that are on the call. It gives you the ability to make a lasting difference to communities in Africa by, a lot of the young people that you will meet on this experience. They don't often get an awful lot of attention. It's a very neglected part of the world. It is very limited, and I'll have a little bit more about the situation of each country that we're visiting in terms of the young people that be being supported. But it will help you understand and make the lives of others better. The other advantage, you're going to be able to disconnect from the bustle of Western life and get a greater understanding of what makes us human. The young people that you'll see them getting such joy out of the smallest things. It's an incredibly unique experience that I just haven't had anywhere else in the experiences I've had with the travel that I've done in my lifetime. And just to increase young people and other people within the county as they do the briefing presentations back to the county about global issues that they've come to face. So it's a wider benefit, and that's why I think it's a fantastic project for you to get involved in. Now, the benefits, of course, of volunteering is you can help young people in access to food and education. So when I went to Ghana, we were part of building a canteen facility that enabled local trades and women that were making food that they could then sell to the children for very little area. They had an area that they could prep that and sit down and serve that to the young people. in a particular area. It helped make a lasting difference by improving the key facilities, be it latrines, classrooms, improving the facilities that are available. It will help you complete your Top Scout awards and help you see a beautiful and incredible scenery that just unlike anywhere else in the world. Now, whilst we're going to go through all the amazing things about this expedition with you all, and the opportunities that you'll get, there's a few kind of terms and conditions apply, things that are important for you to know, because this experience is an amazing one, but you've got to think, is it the right one for you? Based on your skill sets, your ability and your aptitude for comfort. Now, Africa is an incredibly unique place in which running water is not guaranteed. There is running water. It's not drinkable, but there is, in a lot of places, a lot of running water. Warm water is very unlikely. So, there's a very unlikely warm showers. You're lucky if it's running. You could just have a bucket to wash with, and some of the elements of your experience, depending on storms, the access to facility, electric can stop working. So it can happen at any time that certain facilities you might be relying on might drop off. And there are some significant cultural differences and expectations that exist within Africa about views on certain issues and experiences, which are, an amazing thing to celebrate our diversity across the world. But these experiences can be overwhelming to some, so it's worth thinking about that, and we'll make sure that the leadership teams that are working with the young people and networkers that are going are well prepared, the young people, the countries that they're visiting, and the potential cultural expectations in those countries. It can be incredibly warm at times. It is very near the equator. It's a relatively warm and known to be a warm part of the world. And it can be uncomfortable at times because there is no air conditioning reprieve, in the area, in any of the buildings. There's a good amount of shade and there's a good amount of breeze, from the areas, but it's just worth thinking, that you could be a bit sweaty and then come to, a cold shower is relatively appreciated as a result of it. But just thinking about these things. Now, there's also very limited access to data. It's an opportunity to consider to be switching off. So there is data in places like Accra and some of the areas, and I'm sure perhaps Zanzibar might be slightly more so with the location, and there may be a little bit more data, but it should be viewed as a kind of a data dead zone. And you will be in close quarters with others for 2 weeks without data potentially. So you need to know that you'll be able to mix with these people and be happy to, but it is very much rather necessary. These experiences are more of an individual experience than a unit experience. You'll make great friends, I'm sure, with people that you go with, but you should certainly be viewed more of as an individual experience going through this journey. And there will be opportunity to meet the people that you'll be going with, of course, so that you're supporting each other and looking after each other while away. So there will be an element of camaraderie there, but it's not the same as maybe one of these more unit-based experiences. Which suits a lot of people in different ways, and it's a different say a jamboree, for example, where there's a lot of close quarters and camaraderie and team building within those areas. Now, you will have access to drinking water the whole time. That's supplied as part of the service, but it might not always be the most palatable. So the minerals and things that they'll use to clean it might not taste the best from experience, but it's with a bit of Ribena or something you can sort it out, so it's palatable. But it's just to make you aware there are some discomforts and things you might feel uncomfortable with there, and you will also have to sleep under a mosquito net of night, and it's worth thinking about. That's just common across Western Africa, particularly for Ghana, very likely for Zanzibar too. I very much will speak to Ghana more often because that's the one that I've done and been to, but I have got a lot of friends that have done the Zanzibar expedition more recently too, so can talk to some of their experiences running through. But there's just a few areas that are kind of to make you aware of, is this experience right for you? And that we are intending on this being a self-selected event, so young people that want to attend, we want to facilitate you attending. There will be a limit to the number of leaders because that will be in relation to the number of young people that are going. We've had a really strong amount of leader interest, which is amazing, and that will be led by the number of young people that are attending as to how many end up going on the event. Now, there are some of the things just to think about within that area. So I just wanted to give you a bit of an idea about my experience as going on an African expedition. So I went with a team of 22. I put 20, but team of 22 to Ghana in 2022 as a last minute addition for a county trip that had a leader drop out, and we head over from Heathrow to Ghana. Arrived in Accra. Place that we got to for the night was the hotel didn't have running water that night, so we had to use a well to fill up a bucket. It was a relatively nice hotel room, and it did have air conditioning that night in particular, but it didn't have running water in that particular occasion because I think a pipe had been knocked over or something, or a pipe had been damaged. So we were filling up from a well a bucket to wash ourselves that first night. So immediately, being a hotel scout myself, I was like, oh, going to have to wash with a bucket. That's new. So just little things like that. There'll be a change. We then head in onto the village in Ketra and got welcomed by the local young people that were just finishing for the year for the summer holidays, just in the time that we were there, and gave us a welcome and welcomed us with African dancing and experiences. And what I've always thought when I've seen pictures of people going to Africa and doing these expeditions, that there's always people with photos with all these children clinging to them, and I'm not massively fond of being touched and clung onto very often, and I didn't quite understand why it was, and I thought it was a lot of the time a lot of posing, but actually these young people often don't have any family. And if they do, they're not often spending a lot of time with them and giving them attention. So for them, there's a lot of excitement when the Westerners come to town, because they give them attention and play with them and make it's more of they seek out that affection. And it made me really think about kind of all young people want affection and someone to play with them and to teach them things. I warmed to them throughout the week, even though there's more attention than they necessarily want to have seen. Now, as part of the expedition as well, there will be some excursions on top of the volunteering that's done. So there'll be a breakup of four days or so volunteering with a tour, then 4 days or so volunteering, and then a tour again. So being in and out particular process, and we went on to a variety of experiences, and I will talk more about the Ghana program as we move on, but they're all really cultural, really interesting, but also just phenomenal geography, just to see, and the landscapes that are visible, amazing waterfalls and such that I saw when I was out there. Not just during the tour areas where there's the volunteering going on, but also as of an evening. There's evening time to do some exploration of the local village and the local area that you exist within. And one of those experiences, one evening, we went into an African market, which is a significantly cultural experience, from the way that things are sold, how close the stalls are together, and what business or what they do for commerce, and how they get their goods. And the whole time, anytime that you're on site or off site there, that you're escorted by local guides that are there to support the leaders and the young people in attendance. They know the places to go, the people to talk to, and keep an eye on that. Any time that you leave the site, there'll be representatives from African Adventures that are on ground, agents essentially, that work to support our experience in Africa. And our benefit to attending, of course, is they're benefiting their economy. Now, we, as a project, we had two schools that we were working in. That it could be, depending on the size of the trip, we could be across 5 or 6 schools doing projects while there, and some of that could be building bricks. I know a large group of the group that I went out with, they think, I can't remember how many bricks they made, but I think it was in excess of 300 over a couple of weeks. And the group that I was leading and supporting, we were we put a screed floor down, which is the one we're standing on, and then put plaster of cement over the walls, and then it was finished off. There's, as part of the building projects, there's always an on-site builder as well that deals with the skill aspects, a lot of what the volunteering from a building perspective, and that's what I got involved in rather than the teaching, which I'll talk to in a minute. the there's someone skilled on site, so they don't need any building experience or skills in that particular area. As with teaching as well, there's no skills that are required in teaching. What you bring and the education that you've got and the cultural perspective that you can bring to young people in Africa is fantastic. And those that were teaching, they did a lot of things that were unique. They're very used to rote information, so someone writes it down, they write it down, follow, back and repeat. So some more engaging lessons and lesson plans that young people delivered while in Africa were really well received. And there was I did some areas where I talked to people about kind of careers and what they might want to do while I was there on site. Well, we were supporting the building projects as well, which was really valuable to kind of see that, their ambitions as young people in Africa. So it'll give you just exposure to a lot of things, and it's very, if building doesn't suit you while you're out there and that's something that you decided to do, then they're very flexible to support you on site to make sure you get an experience while you're out there. Some do both as well, so both building and teaching as part of a project. And I said every evening there is some cultural experiences for where the locals get involved, and this was particular evening we were being taught African drums and African dancing, which I still haven't got the rhythm for, but a lot of the young people did very well. So it's just a really amazing experience. We went down to the Cape Coast, or the Gold Coast was previously called under British rule, but the Cape Coast, where a lot of the slave trade was conducted from, where local tribes would bring those that were going to be shipped around. So it's a very poignant and developed experience that I had. And while there in the Cape Coast was incredibly beautiful with the view in that particular background. I can't take ownership for that particular photo. One of the other leaders took a better one than I did when I was looking through, so I've nabbed that one on that particular occasion. But as I mentioned on site, we had a tour guide that essentially was with us 24 hours a day, lived very locally to where we were staying, and any time that we left was there and would support the building project to make sure, if anything went wrong, was there to navigate and support. And they're amazing on ground site. So Jidi was the tour guide that we had. Is very likely to be the tour guide. He's still doing it for African Adventures in Ghana, so he'll be there to support you. And he's really, really friendly, amazing person, and is such a role model to the young people in the orphanage and in Woe that you'll hear more about in the future. But this is to give kind of you a taste of the expedition. So this bit now, for those of you that are interested in Ghana, is to talk about the program that would happen for Essex Scouts that's planned. That's just to give you a bit of my experience and what I saw, and then this is kind of the fixed bits that we're aware of. So you'll be going to a place called Woe, just a small region or small village in the Volta region of Ghana. Now, it's a traditional rural fishing village with very little commerce and incredibly low tourist numbers. So they're not very used to having European people or white people in the area. So you will get a lot of looks and people stare, and as a result of it, it's a unique thing. They're not very used to getting tourists of any race other than the Ghanaian. It's incredibly underfunded and under-resourced as an area. People do have to pay to go to school, even if it's a state school. And so there's a very high rates of people not going to school. A lot of people do need to support their family. They could be the oldest of a group and need to do things. There are high rates of poverty. There's not very high rates of food, and food's very cheap in Ghana. So it's not like there's a famine. It's just it's generally young people that face poverty on the basis of not having someone to prepare and teach and help them eat. So those that do, they often come to school hungry and tired because they may have been working late and not had a proper meal. So part of that's to make sure that they get a proper meal through the school. Children have to help their families through fishing or agriculture. And typically they'll start school later in their life. So later on as an age, maybe start school at 8 rather than 5. And they'll very likely finish early as well. But there are some that start even later, even to 12, that haven't had an education by that point. then there is a very high dropout rate of education. So the better the facilities, the better the opportunities and more that we can do, and facilities, it gives more, because most of the schools are oversubscribed. Now, for those that in Ghana, there's 10 non-government comprehensive schools that are running in the region that are supportive. The they all lack resources and equipment, and they all need required additional facilities and increased classroom space. There is no running water on the site, so when doing building, it may be that just your job for for making bricks is moving cement or moving water to make cement, and girls miss up to 30% of schooling due to lack of sanitary products and culture around that. So quite often, if it comes to that time of the month for a young person, they just don't go to school because of the culture around it. So there's a lot of value that we can add to going and supporting. Now, there's two different volunteering roles that you can do, or well, three. So you've got helping with teaching, sports coaching, building and renovation. You'll not be expected to be a professional in anything, and as I said, there's professionals on site to do the skilled labour aspect. But from a building point of view, and part of our involvement funds that builder as part of it as well. But you'll make a real difference whatever you do, and that particular facility had three different groups work on it, and it's just one more group off to put a wooden structure on top. They don't have the same requirements for blocking the rain and such as we do from a building. So you can make quite a big difference quite quickly with the work that's being done. So in addition, as I said, there is the travel weekends. So it's not just volunteering while you're there. You get to see part of Africa. And one of the weekend tour, or the weekend tour that we've booked and signed up to, is the Volta tour region. So you'll visit a protected monkey sanctuary. You'll visit the full waterfalls and have an overnight stay in a lodge, which will be a bit more comfortable than where you were potentially staying during the volunteering part of the trip. And it's amazing walk. I have done this tour. It's really, really excellent. There's more information to come about them, but just to give you a taste of what you may get up to while there. The other weekend that you'll be going on, so it'll be two excursions, will be the Cape Coast Adventure Tour, which includes a canopy walk in a huge kind of rainforesty type forest with lots of water, and you're really, really high up along the trees and walking along rope bridges. It's amazing, really beautiful birds and scenery in the area. And visiting the Cape Coast Castle that I talked about, that played a key role in the slave trade, which has a really poignant meaning to those that are attending. Would really recommend it. It's really amazing. And as I said, each evening there are things that you'll get up to after the volunteering. So breaking up the day, including a lesson in airway, which is the language in the Volta region. They have a local marriage expert come and talk about Ghanaian marriage and the processes and what they get up to from a cultural perspective. And they're very aware of Western cultures. They talk about the differences between marriage in the UK and in Ghana. As I've mentioned, the visit to the local market and the drumming lesson, and there is a couple of visits to the nearby beach as well, which is really nice. There's an amazing fish restaurant there as well that can do fish and taro chips, which is it sounds like a bad combination, but it's really, really nice coal-fired fish on the beach. So yeah, really would recommend that aspect. So that's to give you a bit of an idea about what you might get up to in Ghana over the 2-week period. That leads me on to Zanzibar, which is based in Stone Town. It's a popular tourist destination because of the beautiful blue waters, the warm climate. It's on the other side of Africa to Ghana, so it's slightly warmer, slightly further south. I'm not sure it's slightly further south actually, but it's a bit warmer. But there is a significantly wider gap between rich and poor, whereas in Ghana it's particularly poor. There is elements of wealth in the area, but there's a bit more of a divide in Zanzibar. And it's a city, so it's got that aspect. Now, it's partnered with 3 schools that are government schools, African Adventures in Zanzibar. Each school is heavily overcrowded, and it operates 2 half-day schools as a result, because they have a morning school and an afternoon school to double the number of potential pupils. There's significant lack of resources in terms of chairs, desks, stationery, and sports equipment. So and I don't know if I've mentioned, but part of the trip is that we will take 2 bags out, one of which is our own kit. The other is a bag full of donations towards the local schools that you're going to. So be another aspect of your fundraising is trying to find donation items, be it old school textbooks that might have been thrown away, stationery items, and things like that to think about. And we'll certainly be looking for those kind of donations and things from from friends. So certainly worth thinking about. And the voluntary roles are much the same. The last one was people building, but there's teaching of basic mathematics, English teaching, talking about English history or history of any area. The lesson plans are very non-specific. Anything that you can bring, and talk to the teachers about what what they'd find valuable. And it will bring a difference. Just our presence there, exposes young people to something they may have never seen otherwise, or ever learn, and just introduce them to a different style of learning. So the Taste of Zanzibar weekend, there's a couple of tours within that. One of them is a walking tour of the Stone Town. You visit a spice farm and sample locally grown fruit, spices, and drinks. There's an overnight stay at a beach hotel. It's a 2-1 night. There's a snorkeling aspect and things to it as well. In addition to that, there's an ocean safari weekend where it's very similar to, I guess, a safari that you might have seen in Africa, but you go and visit coral reefs, bottlenose dolphins, enjoy seafood, and try the local exotic fruits that you may have. As mentioned, the snorkeling, and also you'll be sailing on a traditional African dough. I don't know if that's how it's pronounced, but it's just a boat that looks like this. You'll be sailing on in the area, and you jump off and have a swim, and there's a lot of things to see within that experience. So it's an opportunity again, to do something different and see the area. There's three specific tours on this. With the way that it's run, it's kind of broken up a little bit more. The other aspect is to go to the forest and see various monkeys, chameleons, bush babies, adders, and over 50 species of butterfly and birds. So it's a very nature-filled place with different landscapes, because it's so close to the sea in that area. And as mentioned, in the evenings you will do things as well. Freddie Mercury was born in Zanzibar, so you'll be able to see the birthplace of Freddie Mercury that time. You'll be able to visit the beach of an evening. It's walking distance from the beach where you're staying, so you'll be able to see those in the evening. Visit the local markets and arts and craft market, and similar to the farewell celebration that was had in Ghana. There's a evening activity of celebration and thank you from the local schools included of an evening as part of that. Now, flying anywhere has got more expensive, and we want to make sure that everybody can attend this regardless of their financial position. Fundraising is very normal for an African Adventures. Have a lot of resources and support, and as we move to the transition of working directly with African Adventures, they've got a lot of support and advice as well. And there are a lot of grants and local opportunities for people to sign up to. But fundraising is a valuable part of the experience, and it's considered part of the experience. So it shouldn't be something that you should necessarily view as something to pay for. It's part of the experience, particularly for the participants that are going. So an aspect of the role for leaders is to support the young people in their fundraising and in ideas to support it. So that's part of the job description for that role, is to facilitate and support fundraising activities amongst the young people that are going. But there is very much an independent experience, as I said before. So young people need to take that as part of the trip, and it should be considered as part of the trip. But Don't forget when doing fundraising also to look for school supplies, so that we can make a benefit from a resource point of view, that and deliver it directly to the schools that will value it so much. And there is grants and things available within the county to support people attending, but, both adults and young people. So we don't want to avoid people attending. Now, there are young people and adults on this presentation this evening, so I wanted to just go over just what the role of a leader looks like, because so much of the experience is organised by African Adventures. The primary role for the leaders is to ensure safety, and welfare of participants and the rest of the leadership team for the duration of the experience, and make sure that people are happy and getting the most out of their experience. And it's very much a facilitation role. While you're in an amazing place and experiencing things, it needs to be recognized. There may be times you might need to miss out on certain aspects of the program in the interest of a young person. Say they needed to, they're unwell and need to stay somewhere. So it's just something to think about within that. As I've mentioned, the supporting and delivering fundraising. Ghana and Zanzibar leaders will be expected to work together. So, we're part of the international team, and we'll have a focus on African expeditions. And you will have your own projects in your own right. But I'm hoping we're setting a direction potentially for the future of a 4-year thing here. So it's having an impact and making sure you're solving very similar problems together, and there's support and learnings to be done for both trips. So the goal is that the African expeditions team will work together to deliver both these experiences, albeit the leadership team that will go to Zanzibar and the leadership team that will go to Ghana. But those that are helping with Ghana would look to support the Zanzibar trip in getting started and passing over. And Ghana's kind of the first point of call and learnings, and we're going to continue to learn from anything that we do and moving forward from there. And make sure everyone is enjoying themselves is a massive aspect. So this gets on to a guideline. Because of working with African expeditions, we have got a very good idea about a agreed fee for attendance for young people. Now, leaders do have an adjusted fee that will be communicated at the selection weekend as part of the conversation. So there is a slight adjustment to this, but it's not it's not above the value. So for Ghana, the value is 2,745 to the fundraising target for those attending. We, as Essex Scouts, would take an initial £200 at sign up, depending at the point in which sign up, and I will talk through the timelines for those very shortly. And 195 would then need to be paid directly to African Adventures, who have a portal which will be set up, which the leaders will have access to be able to support young people and understand where they're going from. And then there's the four payment dates onward from that will go through that system. The Zanzibar trip, just a slight difference. It's all just based on the additional tours that could be done in that location. Similar scheme, but different values, and also it's starting on later in the year. So with Ghana's a bit more of a accelerated start point, but Zanzibar, the opening of things should be around May time next year, and when payments and things will come in. And there's a bit more to the timeline in the next slide. So whilst those costs have been described, and as I said, this is all being recorded, so that information is there to hand, there are some other costs that you should consider as attending that. So there's not just necessarily that attendance fee, and this will be different depending on the position that young people have been in terms of previous travel history, whether they've got a passport, and their personal circumstances. Vaccinations, there's none that are specifically required other than yellow fever to enter Ghana. So it's completely up to participants whether they, other vaccinations they may choose to have, and we'll provide guidance and point you to the right direction to get the right advice. But the only one that's required for entry is a yellow fever certificate. So if for any reason there is a reason for exemption for a vaccine, you would still get a certificate, but it would have an exemption page filled out instead. I don't know if I've got a yellow fever certificate to hand. I have. So it looks like this. It's a little yellow book. and inside it, it just has to say that you've been vaccinated for yellow fever, or have got an exemption for yellow fever. So that's an aspect just to consider. For those that feel that they require them, and again, this is a personal choice. And there's things to consider as part of that, and weighing up the risks. I did take them when I was there, with the anti-malarial tablets, which have varying degrees of expense depending on the time frame that you want to take them for, and there's lots of different options for those, as an option, but they do have an expense. It's not, it's, I think for the time that I was away, it was about 50 or 60 pounds for that period of time, just to give you an indication. But there, I went for some slightly a shorter period of time that I was taking them for. So I think that you could drop that down to around 40. There may be some options with that in the long term as well, but it's just to make you aware of that. In addition to that, we don't know what passport that you've got. This is open to all members, regardless of their nationality. Whilst yes, many of you will be British citizens, it's or some of you may have dual citizenship. So the visa for entry is something to consider. I think the entry fee is around £45 for a visa for Ghana at the moment. So, but we will provide all that information with time. I just want to be very transparent now about, that while there is that target fee for attendance, there is also these other things just to consider. It's not necessarily all inclusive, but it pretty much covers everything. And then when in country, personal equipment and gifts, and if you wanted to make any tips to anyone while away, that there's just something to consider. I think I took £200 when I went to Ghana, and I struggled to get through half of it. I had a lot of cash left over, which I donated to the area, but you could of course bring it home as well. It's very, very cheap to do things there, and I bought various souvenirs and things, and a lot of cokes, like soft drinks, while there is part of the venue, they have like a little shop that helps bring money to the community, and there's nice cold Coke and Fanta, and they're glass bottles as well, so very recyclable. They do send the glass bottles off, they get washed and brought back with new Coke, so yeah, really very, very sustainable as well, which was valuable, because particularly with the volume that I went through while I was there, because it was warm. And of course, the other cost to consider is the travel to the airport. So we haven't included that in the package, just based on circumstance. It's very likely to be Heathrow, just based on the flight destination. But as teams, we can kind of team up within that particular area, and decide, and as unit leadership teams, it may be that with fundraising and things, you do travel together, but at the moment it's not included. I just wanted to make that clear, but you'll meet people and can make it easier with travel, and it's not a million miles away, but just wanted to be completely open to the potential other costs. So that is otherwise all food, all transport, bits in the lead up, and that kind of thing. So there is an element of personal gear to be included as well, but otherwise it's a fully covered kind of setup. So what does the sign up process look like? So we are currently opened leaders applications, and we've had a significant number of applications already for attendance, which is fantastic. We've opened the expressions of interest for young people for both expeditions. Now, this does say the 15th of November, but I think it's more likely to be sometime in December that the application process will launch. So we will let everybody know that's signed up to the expressions of interest. The form will follow, so you can scan this in a moment, but we'll let everybody know when that opens, and it will be published across the county as well. But the expressions of interest is giving us a guide of how many people are interested, so that we can kind of run through from that particular area. And we will then, at the point of application, collect £200. It's not Monopoly, but we will run through in that area. And then we will, as part of that sign-up process, be contacting your leaders or a reference, just to confirm that that the experience would be right for you as just an additional area. So do start thinking, for those that young people that are applying, you will need a leader's reference, so just make sure that you collect their email and run through, because that will be just part of the process, just to make sure that we've we've got confirmation from your local groups that they believe that you'll get on okay with this expedition. Because it is self-selection, we're not going to be running a selection process for young people. We want it to be open for everybody. As people sign up, and we need to make sure we get an idea about people's needs and things to make sure it's accessible. I did take a young person to Ghana that was registered blind, so there's lots of options available, but we will have appropriate conversation to make sure that the experience is safe for you to attend, and part of that is just to get a reference from your leaders to confirm your attendance. So once the deposit's paid, we have got a webinar that will be opened with African Adventures, and we'll send you all your a code in which you can then create your African Adventures portal that's got that it will have everything in it. So it's a really good system and a really good process that they've got that links through it. Now that is pretty much identical for Zanzibar. The leaders are still being selected on the same process, and again it says that the applications will open September. It could be as early as May, which still locking in the timelines. They've got a couple of different timelines, but we will communicate to those that have expressed interest in attending. Now, I've got the timeline here. So again, the dates are is to give you a guide of the direction that we're going in, but we will make sure that these are communicated fully. So as talked, the expressions of interest will open in October 2023. So we've done that. And leader applications have opened. Now, the deadline for those applications for leaders is the 5th of January 2024. Now, the participant sign up will open early December 2023, so the end of this year. And the deadline for young people to sign up will be the 12th of January. Now, it will be first come, first served to a cap. We haven't quite agreed what that cap will be yet. We're just waiting to make sure we've got an idea about capacity for African Adventures. We want to make sure that we feel comfortable with the capacity as well. With it being a first time that we're doing it, and the number of leaders, of course, that have applied. So participant selection applications will open on the 12th of January, but getting in there sooner is a positive thing, because that will have an influence on the number of adults to make sure that we get the right number of adults to the number of young people and networkers that are attending, or both young people that are attending. Now, we will be running a leader selection day on the 13th and the 14th of January for the event. So it'll be either 13th or 14th as a guide. For those that if that doesn't necessarily work for leaders, we'd still encourage you to apply, but it's just if you can reserve that date in the diary for the time being as a guideline. We hope to invite everybody that's applied to that day. So please do keep that free for the time being for those of you that are adults. We'll then following the leader selection be launching the African Adventures portal across the county, which will run on the 16th of January. So it's an evening webinar, which will then be African Adventures welcoming you to the trip and giving you a bit more information about the program, the process. Well, then within that time, all the way up to 2025, there'll be fundraising and preparation, and there will be some get together and packing days and kit donation collection, that kind of thing within that time frame. And then, of course, you'll enjoy the opportunity of a lifetime and tell others about your experience, and thank any sponsors and those that supported you on your attendance, and report back. So obviously there's a bit of blur in the timeline, which is kind of quite heavy on the left hand side, which is now and then up to the experience, but we're building the leadership team to build what that looks like. So the experience is definitely happening. It's just the what that looks like in terms of dates and things and the lead up. It's still a while off. So that's where we're at with that one. And Zanzibar is very similar. The only difference is that we look to open around May 24, with a deadline of the 7th of September for sign-ups. So otherwise the timeline's pretty much the same, and the leaders are being selected early, and that is because we want to make sure that we have got the right people running it, but also that there's collaboration between the different the different leaders running each experience. So we're hoping that there's collaboration between the two, as you are delivering very similar experiences, and we're building the future of this experience. So Again, later on sign-ups within that particular area. So what are the next steps? So it's very simple for the young people. Please, get your phone out. If you've already done this, many of you have completed. I think in total, I've had a total of, to give you a live update, 93 young people express interest in both Ghana and Zanzibar. Obviously, this evening that could have extended that, could have, that doesn't necessarily translate into any numbers, but that's some fantastic numbers in terms of, particularly with how early we are. And this, as I've said, this webinar is recorded, so hi to those that are watching. We'll continue to have that open for the time being until such time that we open the sign up. So for those that are going that are applying for Ghana, you will need to pay your deposit of £200 along with your application and the reference application contact. But for the time being, just express your interest, scan the QR code that's on the screen now, fill out your details, and express interest in either Ghana, Zanzibar, or both. And for those that have selected both, they'll be sent the information about both experiences as they've opened. If you just select Ghana, you'll be sent over. Leaders will be considered for both expeditions, while they may have selected a preference, and it'll be we are considering them both for both expeditions. So let's just run through on the next step. So those that are awarded places will be invited to the webinar on the 16th of January. And if for any reason we have a mass flurry of applications and we feel that it's in excess of the number that we can facilitate attending, the monies paid will be refunded in full for any reason. So there's not any risk on that aspect. It's just to make a process. So then we'll open up your African Adventures account, and you'll make your first payment of £195, and then all future payments will be managed through that platform. And the leaders will be running that experience. So there'll be a handover from me on that particular aspect. And Zanzibar's the same, similar process. Just later on in the year, so late September, so September 2024, so 10 months or so away within that particular time frame. So for it says next steps young people, but it's next steps adults. The applications are both open for leaders at the present. Now, we're not taking money from leaders from the application point of view at this stage, but those that are successful will be requested to pay their £200 within a week of the appointment. And note that the payment for African Adventures to open it up will be £195 and be required shortly after. Now, we're not completely we might not necessarily appoint all the Zanzibar leaders immediately after the selection weekend, because it will have a bearing on the number of young people that are attending Zanzibar. But we'll appoint 4 leaders to begin with, because that's kind of our considered minimum quantity for Zanzibar. So those 4 leaders for Zanzibar will join whatever team for Ghana. We'll have a good number of people that are signing up for that particular aspect. So yeah, next steps for leaders. I've got it right on this particular slide. So following the launch of the webinar African Expedition team, so that's on the 16th, we'll look to bring a summit of the African Adventures leaders together, or African Expeditions leaders together. And we really want you to work together to make sure that these expeditions are a success and build a framework for them to continue to be a success in the future. So it's a long-term aspect. Now, I've got lots of questions that have been pre-asked on the settings. So I'll read out a few of those out loud just to get people warmed up, and you can think of any questions that you might have had as we go through. So if I read out a few of these in the meantime, and then I will ask the floor to run through. So let's have a look through. And said, right, I've always wanted to do a scouting trip like this. That's great. When will we find out more information? Well, that was tonight with the webinar. Oh yeah, raise your hand if you've got a question, and then I can know who to go to. What would we actually be doing on these trips? I'm hoping I've answered that now. So there'll be volunteering, both building and sports coaching, and there will be African experiences as part of the tours as well. So generally about 8 days of volunteering and 7 days of exploring. So, or what date of the departure? So, at the moment, obviously, it's all dependent on flights, but the 25th of July is the target departure date for both expeditions. So they're in the summer of 25 and 26, with the guide departure date of the 25th of July. That will be slightly dependent on flights, but it'll only be plus minus a day or two. So it's within that window is to be considered. What are the sleeping arrangements? So that's a really good question. I don't think I answered that within the setting. The sleeping arrangements, you will always be in a bed. How comfortable that bed is negotiable. But some of the nights that I was in Ghana, and I can only really speak to Ghana. In fact, the Zanzibar group that I know that recently got back of scouts from somewhere else in the UK, they slept in a nice hotel majority of the time, so they had a very good kind of setup within that area. And the rooms when we were in Ghana, we stayed in the local. It was like a youth hostel is the best description of it. It was a very basic youth hostel, but it had a nice cold shower that was plumbed well, and it was cleaned every day, and basic bedding. They didn't really use quilts, so if you like someone that likes to have something over you, maybe just bringing a sheet with you as part of it, we'll run in from there. But yeah, the sleeping arrangements are a bed indoors most of the time. Depending on how thick the roof is, it might be a bit tinny and noisy, but it is a good standard of accommodation. What you've got to think, a lot of schools do go out with African Adventures, so it's a school level of accommodation. We're not going to be having you out in the bush, and it's a good there's enough things to contend with while you're there, but you will be under mosquito nets for that for most of the evenings, unless there's filtration systems in the particular hotels that you stay in. So yeah, really good question. I hope I've given that. I will get to the ones that have been asked on the chat as well. Itinerary, I think we've covered. What might you eat? So that's a really good question. Now, I went to Africa thinking I'd lose some weight and was disappointed because it was very, very high in calories. Really, really nice food. It was a mixture of kind of westernized African food. So a lot of beans, a lot of yam, mixed, a lot of kind of vegetable stew type things, and then with meat on the side. The meat is, it's not. The fish was the best in my particular opinion. I liked fish, but they had chicken a lot of the days, but it's not chicken on the in chicken nugget form. It is real chicken. So, and they will just chop it up, similar to like they might do jerk chicken. But for those of you that are fussy on food, there was a few people that were fussy, and there's fruit. That's one of the days you get pancakes. It's fairly safe food. The standards are to a European kitchen standard, not a maybe like professional kitchen, but a home style kitchen standard. And it is checked, and they do have processes. And when I was in Ghana, and similar to in Zanzibar, there were chefs on site that do the cooking and have strict processes, and it's to a higher degree than you would get elsewhere, kind of in Africa, and the restaurants that you'll be taken to will be good quality ones, and just trusting what the guides and the local tour support is there to do, and working with it. So yeah, that's not a particular area that run through, and then run through. Is this open to parent participation? If it's open to leaders that are adults in scouting. So if this is the perfect recruitment drive, contact your local group or neighbouring group and say to you'd like to do this expedition, and go and be a club leader or something for a group for in the next couple of years. It's open to members, so if we can use this as a chance to get you through the door. But it's open to members of the Scout Association in Essex, so or members of Essex Scouts, should I say. So parent participation, whether your young person or your child is attending as a participant, it will be independent of your attendance, will be in your own merit as a leader of the experience and the application process. But it's please join a local group or support something in scouting, and come along to this experience. I'm just going through the other areas if there's anything else to come through. I've had quite a few. Cool. Right, I will move on to the chat here. So, will there be opportunities for young people to be together before the departure date? Yes, there will be some training weekends and potentially camps and activities. And the fundraising will be a big aspect of it. So it may be, not necessarily, it's not that's necessarily going to be the same as like a jamboree where you've got your regular catch-ups with the units and a unit experience, but there will be information opportunities to bring you together, and get groups fundraising together and meet people. So yes, absolutely. Will the PowerPoint be sent out as well as the webinar? The video definitely will be, and the PowerPoint's on there. I will see whether we can make that accessible online. I'm pretty sure that we can. Are they individual or shared rooms that we will sleep in? So the rooms are generally going to be shared rooms. So think hostel style accommodation is the best description. Some of the nights you might be in a hotel which have a couple of beds. There may be occasion that there's a large double bed in a particular room, and you might be asked to share at in those particular occasions as well. I can't say but it's very likely that you'd be in separate beds. And then you'll be in separate beds, but in the same room. And would we be the only group of young people helping in that 2 weeks? Yes. So this is a very much a unique individual experience. There will be a lot of young people from Africa that are there. A lot of orphans, a lot of street children, and all the school children as well in the area. But yes, it will be definitely just an Essex expedition partnered with African Adventures. So I think there were some hands up. If you would like to just unmute yourself and ask, I think it's probably the best option, because I can't see. Oh, can I see all the participants? I can't see a hand up anyway. But if you have got any questions, please feel free to ask. In the meantime, I think as I've answered quite a few things, I'm going to stop the video just to increase the speed. So thanks everybody that's watched the video. Please feel free to get in touch. Stop recording.